Hey everyone, welcome into Draft to the Future. Just Ryan tonight. Matt, unfortunately, is not feeling well. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit the notifications so that way you can get all of our upcoming draft content. But before I get into draft content, quick little chat about free agency because it has been wild. I'm going to pull up some stuff here and talk through some of the moves. It has been crazy. There's been so many different things that have happened, and the most recent one is quite possibly the most absurd thing. The Ravens basically changed their mind and screwed the Raiders and backed out of the Max Crosby trade. Probably going to sign Trey Hendrickson, I would assume. To me, it's a pretty dirty thing to do as a team. The medicals that they're talking about, everybody already knew those things. So I think they got cold feet, decided that everyone was roasting like the compensation, and they just decided to change their mind. So, it is what it is. The Ravens have done this several times in the past, and I think it's a pretty sad move by an organization, but it is, it's their choice. But some of the big moves that have happened, the Titans have gotten quite a few players. They've gotten guys like Trubisky, Cordell Flott, Alontae Taylor, John Franklin Myers, Wan'Dale Robinson. So they've done a lot. You got to see Mike Evans go to the Niners, which is really cool. Let's see. The Eagles got Tariq Woolen. The Jets made some moves with Kingsley Enagbare, Joseph Osai, Demario Davis, Nashawn Wright. The Giants have signed an absolutely large amount of people here with Patrick Ricard, Darius Washington, Greg Newsome, Tremaine Edmonds. They brought back Jermaine Illuminor, and they got Isaiah Likely. The Patriots got Draymond Jones, Elijah Vera Tucker, Romeo Doubs. Not a whole lot except for Malik Willis going to the Dolphins. We talked about the Raiders already. The Raiders added Tyler Linderbaum, Kwity Paye, Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, Jalen Naylor, Eric Stokes, and Malcolm Kuntz. And I'm pretty sure they still have money to take to bring back Max Crosby. So it'll be interesting to see if all those additions is enough to make Max want to stay. Who knows? And then the Rams got Jalen Watson. They're just taking everyone from the secondary of the Chiefs. Let's see. The other big one was Kenneth Walker going to the Chiefs. Probably takes them out of the Jordan Love sweepstakes. Logan Hall just went to the Texans. The Texans also got, Reed Blankenship. We got Alec Pierce stayed with the Colts. Lions, not really anybody too exciting there other than maybe Isaiah Pacheco. The Broncos paid a lot of money for J.K. Dobbins. That one kind of surprised me a little bit. The Browns signed an offensive line. They got Zion Johnson, Elgton Jenkins, and Tevin Jenkins. I am pretty much booking Monroe Freeling for pick 6 there to be their left tackle. My Bengals got Brian Cook and Boye Mafe, which I am super ecstatic about, but then they did nothing today and pretty much lost out on the linebacker market other than maybe some veteran guys. Could mean linebackers in play at 10, so that'll be interesting. We've got Kobe Bryant, Khalif Raymond, Braxton Jones over to the Bears. Panthers have signed a lot of people as well. Jalen Phillips, Devin Lloyd, Kenny Pickett, Luke Fortner. Stone Forsythe, and they brought back a few of their own players. The Bills, D. Alford was their big one. Falcons, they got Tua, which is kind of crazy. And then other than that, Christian Harris, Austin Hooper. And then the Cardinals, LJ Collier, Gardner Minshew. It sounds like they're going to roll with Brissett and Minshew. They're basically banking on 2027 draft for quarterback, I'm assuming. So that's the quick little recap there on free agency, which was kind of wild. But lots going on there. So what we're actually here to talk about today, though, is our top 10 rankings. So we've already gone through a lot of these positions. So I'm going to get over to the interior offensive line. And Interior offensive line is an interesting class for me. Lots of centers. I love the center class here. I think there's a lot of guys. We're going to get guys on day 4, potentially, round 4, round 5 that I think are going to be starters in this league for quite a while. And Matt and I have a lot of the same players, some players that aren't alike. So I'll talk through a little bit on his guys as well. But I'll start right with my number 1 overall interior offensive lineman, which is Olaiva-Vega-Ioane from Penn State. He's a guard for them. He only gave up 4 pressures and no sacks and 600-plus snaps in the best conference in college football, which is huge. He's got great size. I love, he's got strong hands and great length as well. He doesn't. The thing I don't like about him too much is he's not great on the move in the run game. So when pulling things like that, I don't see that as a strength of his. Matt's a little lower on him. He's got him as his 3rd, but I know that's not a bad ranking for Matt either. Next, I've got Brian Parker II. I may be a little biased here because I watched him all season long. But he was the right tackle for Duke, and he's going to be switching to most likely guard or center. He took snaps at some of the All-Star games. I think he needs to build his lower body strength, but he's a very, very technically refined player, and he also is really good at reading the defense, seeing what's going on, and being able to kind of be that field general. The reason he's moving to the interior is because of short arms, smaller size, a little lighter. So don't expect him to to be able to stick on the outside. Most teams are probably going to move him inside right away. And Matt has him at number 5 overall, but I know he's a big fan as well. Then at number 3, I've got Emmanuel Pregnon. Emmanuel Pregnon is a guy that originally was my number 1 overall, but after going back and looking at him a little bit, and realizing the age that he was, he's an older player. He only has one real breakout year this year, but he's a strong and long player. He has a tendency to lean into blocks, which is causes some issues sometimes. But he played both guard spots, and I think. Matt has a saying that, as long as you're getting one good contract out of him, he's not as worried about the age. So, he's got him at his number 1 overall. But that's Emmanuel Pregnon. And then we've got my next player is Bo Stevens. Bo Stevens, another older prospect, 23 and a half. You're not supposed to scout the helmet, but something about Iowa offensive linemen that it's really hard to just overlook. I would probably draft anyone from that entire offensive line, to be honest. What I love about Bo Stevens, he is a nasty player. He's a bully. He plays mean. He wants to hit people. So I really like that about him. He's got a really good snatch trap that he employs as much as he can. He's super strong, and he doesn't have many penalties. A very, very clean player. Some of his downfalls, which is why I think he's much lower than where I have him, is that he has missed time nearly every year with some sort of injury, and that obviously causes some concern. And then also I think he lacks agility. He's a decent athlete, but not doesn't have that lateral quickness that you want. All right. And then, Matt has him at number 7 as well. So we've talked about him before. And then Keelan Rutledge. He is another guy out of Georgia Tech that I would consider he's got a mean streak to him. The difference between him and Bo Stevens is I feel like Keelan Rutledge is more of a just gifted player who isn't as technically sound in his footwork as a Bo Stevens is. If you get him to a team that has a good offensive line coach that can definitely work on that footwork and that technique, it's going to be good. He also does play upright pretty consistently, and that's not necessarily something that you want. But Keelan Rutledge is a guy that I really like, and I think Matt has him on there as well. Maybe not. No, he doesn't. Okay. And then Matt Golban, the center out of Michigan State. He's got great size. He's good at clearing the lanes in the run game. He's got decent lateral quickness. It's not necessarily a skill set like a high point of his, but he's solid. And then he's very experienced. He's a 3-year starter, and he's got some line versatility. I think he's played almost every position except for left tackle. So that's something that a lot of teams like in these guys that are going to go probably early day 3. They want them to have some line versatility. Now, I'm a little lower on this next guy compared to where the consensus has him. Consensus has him going early day 2. But Chase Bisontis out of Texas A&M is someone Matt doesn't have on his board, and I understand why from a data perspective. Didn't necessarily have the greatest year in that way, but he's a very big guy. It's like 6'6", good weight. His technique helps him overcome the height, so that way he can still gain good leverage. He's definitely a great athlete. The thing that he struggles with a lot is penalties. He has a ton of those. And then I think he also needs to work on his hands technique. He's a guy that honestly I would love to see with a team like the Bengals. Our offensive line coach, Scott Peters, is known for building the hand skills, the hand fighting for players. But Bisontis is also really good at pulling, getting out in front of the run and making some moves that way. So Bisontis is a guy that I think is probably going to go early day 2, but I'm a little lower on him. I have probably early day 3 grade on him. And honestly, outside of the first 3, like I have those first 3 that are like a tier above for me. So Ione, Parker, and then Pregnon are my 3 favorites. And then the difference between like Bo Stevens at number 4 and then like my number 13 is not a lot. So I just want to make that clear. And then we've got Pat Coogan. Pat Coogan, another guy that Matt doesn't have on his board. But center from Indiana. He is a limited athlete for sure. And he doesn't have consistent drive after initial contact. A lot of times it seems in the film he'll make initial contact and then not drive his feet as well. But, that's a simple fix. But I think he handles stunts really well, and he's strong and he's experienced. And honestly, just watching him through that playoff run that Indiana had, I am pretty convinced he's going to be a starting center. He might just need a little bit of development. And then going back to the helmet scouting somewhat with Logan Jones, and a lot of people are high on him as well, so I'm joking about the helmet scouting. But he's a 4-year starter at Iowa. He's smaller, and he's not necessarily the strongest guy in the world, but he's definitely quick, and he knows the game, and it's clear that he understands what the defense is trying to do. He's probably going to struggle with power rushers. But over the last 2 years, he only given up 1 sack and 8 pressures. So he's a guy that right now is rated very low on the consensus, like in the upper 100s. And to me, if I can get that guy and let him sit behind a established starter for a year or 2, and just continue to build his skill set and his strength up, I think he could be a gem later on. Matt has him at his number 10 there as well. All right, and then we've got Jake Slaughter, who looks like a high school science teacher. I don't know if you've seen the photos of him from the combine. It's pretty funny. He's also an older player. I know some people that are incredibly high on him. And for me, I wish he had more lower body strength for me to be much higher on him. And I wish he stayed engaged with the defender more often. He can let guys get out of the block pretty easily sometimes. But I think he's a really great processor of what's happening and his role in the offensive line and blocking. And he's got a great anchor as well. And he's also a two-time captain in the SEC. He's going to be a solid starter that can add to your locker room. So that's my top 10. I'm going to talk about a few guys that Matt has that I do not. So the first one, obviously, is Spencer Fano. I know why Matt has him there. He measured in a little shorter at the combine. I don't care. I'm still calling him a tackle. He's going to be a tackle for me until the league says otherwise. So I'm just keeping him there. He did go down down a little bit in my overall rankings, but he's still pretty highly rated for me. Pretty much the exact same thing for the other two guys that he has that I do not, which are Cage Casey. I'm going to keep him at tackle until the league says he can't, but he probably does settle in at interior at guard. And then Keegan Tross as well. He's an older player, so that has him a little lower, but he's definitely a tackle for me as well until the league says otherwise. All right, so I know without Matt here, I'm going through this a little quick, but that's all right. It means I can get off here and get back to free agency. So here's a little graphic that talks about the different things, like my top 10, Matt's top 10, and out the consensus. So some different areas where the consensus has people. So Connor Lew is arguably would have arguably been the number one interior offensive lineman on the consensus boards if it weren't for the injury. And that's what really honestly scared me off. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not like I have him like crazy down my board. I'm pretty sure I have him at 12 right now. And it's just mainly because of the injury. And honestly, before the injury, he was having probably his worst year of his career. And he was getting overpowered a lot at times. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. The play was inconsistent for me. The other one that they have that I do not is Sam Hecht. He has been, like, during the draft process, has been a huge riser. And he's number 13 overall on my interior offensive line board. He's a limited but solid athlete. I think his RAS was like 8.13. Oh, excuse me. He does have great hand technique. But he doesn't have the greatest power, and he struggles a little bit to get push. He definitely plays with that mean streak though, so he's also a guy that I am a big fan of. But like I said, player 15 on my interior offensive line board and player 5 on my interior offensive line board aren't very far apart in my opinion. And then the last one is Billy Schroff. He is out of Notre Dame, and I mean, anytime you got an offensive lineman out of Notre Dame, you expect him to probably be good. He's a 4-star from them as well, from high school. He's got really solid technique. He's literally my number 11 as well, so he just missed the cut for me. But he has had a lot of injury issues as well, and that's concerning. Oh, excuse me. That's very concerning. So that's why he ended up being my number 11. I've had him in my top 10. I've taken him out of my top 10. I put him back in my top 10, and then I just he ended up settling in at number 11. So that's the breakdown there. So not too far off, but honestly, I think this is a sneaky class. Like, there's a lot of guys that you're going to be able to find on day 2 and day 3 that I think are going to be long-time contributors in the league. The hard part with interior offensive line is sometimes those guys take a couple years to really hit the field. But something else me and Matt normally do is we give a quick little shout out to a player that's maybe a little lower on our board, but someone that we think people should look at. And the guy that I'm going to shout out is Quincy Hughes out of Wofford. If you haven't been following the page for that long, we just recently did an interview with his teammate Max Pooley out of Wofford. But Quincy Hughes, he's a tackle for them in the FCS. But man, I love the tape. He's quick and powerful. And in his one big time game this year against Virginia Tech, he performed really well. But his size is going to make him move to the interior for sure. But he's the type of guy that I think can, potentially he might need a little bit of time to develop to take that jump from the FCS to the NFL. But Quincy Hughes, to me, absolutely should be drafted, probably at the back end of day 3. But he's the type of guy that I would have that if I was a GM, I would stand on the table and say, you know what, let's grab this guy so nobody else can, and stash him for a couple years behind our starter and let him build up that strength and hopefully be able to be a sleeper for us. So that's it there. All right. So burned through that pretty quickly. And so what I'm going to do now is, taking into account all of the craziness that has happened the last little bit here, I am going to pull up a mock draft. I'm going to get us on PFF, switch this out, and I'm going to do a full first round mock draft, taking into account some of the free agent moves. All right, now what free agency should do if you're a good team is it should set you up to be able to I'm going to try to refresh this, see if the picks went back to the Raiders. But yeah, I'm going to try to take that into account. You want to be able to set yourself up to go BPA. Is that happening? Not sure, but here we go. All right, so it hasn't updated to take the pick back to the Raiders. So to the Ravens. So at pick 14, I'm still going to be picking for the Ravens, but it'll just say Raiders. All right. First pick, not even a question. It's going to be Fernando Mendoza, so not even worth it. Now the Jets. Some people are saying that they might not go with Arvell Reese anymore because they've added some other players at the edge position. But I mean, they added Joseph Osai, who's a decent player, but not a ton of upside in my opinion. He's a solid rotational guy. Kingsley Enagbare, same thing, mostly a run-stopping guy with a little bit of pass rushing upside. And I still think that they're going to want to add that elite talent that can be an off-ball linebacker, can be an edge rusher, and be kind of a chess piece for them. So I think I'm sticking with Arvell Reese there. Now with the Cardinals, I think I would love to throw Ty Simpson there because that would push picks down to my Bengals. But I think what they're going to do is I think they are literally selling this season. They're going to just try to build up and prepare for the quarterback that they take next year. And so that's going to be why I take Francis Mainoa out of Miami to shore up their offensive line. So that way the guy that they draft the following year will be nice and protected. And then, okay, the Titans. The Titans have made a ton of moves, and they've filled some holes. And I think they're going to go one of two ways here. And I think that's going to be either Jeremiah Love or a wide receiver. And I think I'm going to give them Jeremiah Love. I've seen some reports that they're like absolutely enamored with him. So that's where I'm going to go. All right. And then with the Giants, as much as I want to think Tremaine Edmonds would take them out of the running for Sonny Styles, I don't think that necessarily is the case. But honestly, the biggest issue for them still is safety. They added Ardarius Washington, but that's not really a big move, and that's a former head coach brought his guy over. I still think that they're going to add Caleb Downs. And then the Browns are going to fill in their left tackle. They're going to grab Monroe Freeling, and they're going to be happy about it. And, again, prepare probably for a new quarterback in 2027. And then here is where things get a little interesting with the Commanders. The Commanders, they just added Leah Chenal. They added Odafe Owe and Amik Robertson and then Tim Settle. So they could go a bunch of different ways here. And I think because they spent so much money on Odafe Owe, they would have been ecstatic if Jordan Love was there. If Jordan Love was there, or sorry, Jeremiah Love. If Jeremiah Love was there, I think that they would take him. But I think what they're going to do now is they're going to take the next best thing is just another weapon for their quarterback. And I'm going to go ahead and give them Carnell Tate. And then for the Saints, see, the Saints have added quite a bit as well. I think it makes the most sense right now for the Saints still to be in on potentially wide receiver, potentially edge. They did bring back John Ridgeway. They signed Noah Fant. Caden Ellis they just signed as well, and then the running back Travis Etienne, and then the guard/tackle David Edwards. So I could see them either going corner here, still potentially edge, and then I could see them going Sonny Styles as well. And as much as it kills me because I want him for the Bengals, I don't know that they would go there because they brought in Caden Ellis. Okay, I'm gonna give them Mansour Delane. All right, and then with the Chiefs on the clock, people are initially gonna think corner because they lost approximately their entire defensive backs room. But with them, another thing about them is they believe in their ability to add to that room throughout this draft, and with them having an extra pick later on, I could see them going that way there. So I think they're going to add David Bailey. Actually, no. They didn't add anyone in the linebacker room. I'm going to be a little biased here. I'm going to give them David Bailey because they need pass rush. And then I don't care what anyone says. The Bengals are probably taking Peter Woods. But in this case, unless they sign someone, I would not be surprised to see a linebacker super early, at the latest 41. But if Sonny Styles is on the board, that's what I'm taking. The Dolphins could go anywhere, but I think in this case, they're going to add Ruben Bain. Cowboys would be another interesting one for linebacker as well. That is something that they need. They haven't added to, but I don't know that they like CJ Allen. And they added 2 safeties, so I don't think they're going to go safety. And they still need some edge help. I don't think that it was reported they're not in on Max Crosby anymore. I don't think they're going to get Trey Hendrickson, which, man, his agent looks wild. So let's see. Man, this is tough. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and give them Jermod McCoy. And then for here, this seems like a landing spot for Ty Simpson potentially, but the Rams are all in. That's my perspective on them. They're all in. They've made a lot of moves that have set themselves up to do some pretty impressive things. But the only thing that they've really done is they made the big trade. So they've got the corners locked down, and then they signed Jalen Watson. So offensive line, potentially linebacker, potentially wide receiver. And I think I am going to go with, I think I'm going to give them another weapon in Mekhi Lemon. And then again, this is the Ravens here. This is not the Raiders pick. And in this case, the Ravens could go edge rusher and should go edge rusher because they have an awful edge room. It's just so bad. But I think in this case, they're going to probably go Ione because they definitely need some offensive line help. So that's what I'm going to give them. And then with the losses that they have had, the Buccaneers, they've lost Logan Hall, they've lost Cade Otton, they lost Mike Evans, so they can maybe go there. They lost Jamel Dean. But I think they need some edge help. They need a linebacker. I would love for them to go Kenyon Sadiq just so that way, he's gone and we can stop talking about it. But I think I'm going to go ahead and give them an edge and take Akeem Mesidor. The Jets, I think they could be in Kyler Murray. I know they just got Geno Smith. So part of me wants to go quarterback, but I really do think that they're in on that for next year. So I think they're going to add Jordan Tyson, another wide receiver. Lions are going to get a tackle, and I actually think that they're going to take Caleb Lomu over top of Spencer Fano. So they're going to need a left tackle. I think that actually, let's see. I forget if the Vikings added really anybody. Okay, yeah, Minnesota I don't think is – okay, they've added a long snapper and a corner. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give them Dylan Thieneman. It's a need of theirs. I can see them going Caleb Banks here as well. I can see them going Peter Woods. But I think the defensive tackles are going to fall if they don't go early. And then here, this is the perfect fit for what the consensus wants. Again, I am very low on Kenyon Sadiq. I do not have a day one grade on him. I have, at best, I think a middle of day two grade on him. It's just not, I don't personally see it. But Kenyon Sadiq is going to be another weapon for Bryce Young. And then now is where the Cowboys wrap back around and add a linebacker in CJ Allen. All right. Steelers. Again, as a fan of the Bengals, I want to give them Ty Simpson because I don't think that he's going to be great. But I think they're going to probably lean towards adding to the back end or to that defensive line again. Caleb Banks does make some sense. All they've added so far is Rico Dowdle and Jamel Dean. They just extended Cam Hayward. So I'm going to go ahead and give them Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. And then with the Chargers have added some players for sure. They've added a corner. They've added a fullback, a guard, a center, and a tight end. So this is where I think Caleb Banks goes. And then this is where I think Sadiq would have gone, but he's not gone. He's already gone now, so not an option there. Defensive back could be a thing here. I could also see wide receiver potentially be an option for the Eagles. Let's see. They added a corner. They added 2 tight ends. So, yeah, let's go ahead and since they brought in Woolen, we'll go ahead and give them an edge. We'll give them Keldrick Falk. And then the Browns, they took Monroe Freeling. Now I think they're going to look to add a weapon. And the guy that I think that they're going to bring in, let's just look at the room. You know what? My buddy Bill Sparks, I'm going to go ahead and give him Casey Concepcion because he's his wide receiver 1. All right, and then the Bears. I think the Bears here are going to go and grab Peter Woods if he's gone. I think if Peter Woods doesn't go to the Bengals at 10, I think he falls quite a bit. but I don't think he falls past there. And then the Bills has Buffalo. What has Buffalo added? So they've added basically D. Alford. So again, they need a defensive line. They need a safety potentially. They added a big defensive lineman last year out of Kentucky. I don't know if there's a safety that they would take here. Yeah, definitely not. I could see them taking offensive line help. Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and give him Emmanuel Pregnon. With the Niners, I liked picking Omar Cooper Jr. here, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore with the addition of Mike Evans, even though they're different players. They did bring in Vidarian Lowe, who's probably going to play guard for them. But here, I think is where they're gonna go either edge or offensive line. They need to protect their quarterback. And I think Caden Proctor is a guy that can play guard right away and potentially be the future at left tackle. So I think Caden Proctor fits a lot of what they would do. The Houston Texans. The Houston Texans have added a good amount here. On the D line, they've added some tackle help as well as a safety. And so for them, a lot of things open up because they've added to that room. But I think they still Braden Smith is planning to play guard for them. So I could see them going with a Spencer Fano. Could see them going with a Blake Miller. But I think I'm going to go ahead and continue. So Logan Hall is that pass rush specialist, defensive tackle. I'm going to go ahead and give them Cade McDonald to add some more juice there. And then we've got the Chiefs, who, again, need corners. So this is where they're going to take a guy like Avion Terrell to add to that room. The Broncos would like running back. They would like tight end. They could go defensive line. But believe it or not, a guy that I think could make a lot of sense and I think is deserving of a first-round pick is Jacob Rodriguez. And so that's what I'm going to give him. Patriots, I think, are going to go wide receiver or offensive line. Just make sure I'm not missing anything from what they've signed so far. Yeah, they did get Romeo Doubs. They brought in an edge and Draymond Jones, Vera Tucker. I still think they're going to want to add more to that wide receiver room, so I'm going to go ahead and give them Denzel Boston. And then I think that with the departures that they have had, the Seahawks are in an interesting spot because they've lost a couple corners. They've lost an edge. They lost a wide receiver. They lost a running back. They lost a safety. So they could go a lot of different ways. For them, it's all about continuing to bolster things. So I think the smart move here would be to replace one of those corners with Colton Hood. All right. So that's our post. That is our post free agency so far, first round mock. Now, honestly, my perspective on this draft is wild and no one is going to have any clue how things happen. So don't expect this to look anything close to what actually happens. I really hope that Sonny Styles is the guy for the Bengals, but let's not count on it. But yeah, hey, thanks for hanging out with me. I know it's just me tonight, so not as much conversation, just me talking at you. But we've got some more stuff coming in the next few weeks. Starting next week, we have our offensive tackles. We're hoping to potentially do some more player interviews. If you haven't already, go look at our interview with Landon Robinson, Max Pooley, Cameron Stewart, and our 2027 guy, Gideon Lamprin. Those have been really fun. And Landon Robinson is continuing to move up boards, in my opinion. And Cameron Stewart is starting to get a little love from different players. His pro day is coming up. But just go check them out because it's awesome to hear the perspective of these guys that are trying to make their dreams come true. So let us know if there's players that you think we should try to reach out to going into next season. But we're going to keep plugging along and looking at our offensive positions over the next few weeks. And then we've got the draft coming up the week of April 21st, and the draft starts on April 23rd. So be excited. It's almost here. Free agency is definitely going to still change a few things over the next few days, so keep an eye out for that. And as always, thanks for watching, and like and subscribe and turn on those notifications. Have a good one, y'all.